Hello, my name is Carl Surrey and this is a video tutorial for two Facebook groups, fans of serif software and the Affinity Design and Photo group. And this is an Affinity photo tutorial, and it is to make an image look much warmer, much sunnier, sort of adding a hazy sunshine to a picture. And this is an adaptation of a Photoshop tutorial which I've had on one of my magazine discs, and I'm adapting it for Affinity Photo. Now this is the image I'm going to be using. I got this from Pixabay.com, and it is a cold blue image, and the end result, I'm hoping, will look something like this, which is a much sunnier, brighter, warmer day with the sun in the sky. Now it doesn't have to be a landscape. You could add this to sort of any sort of image, but I would advise, if you try and avoid images that have lots of shadow, because if you're going to put a sun up here somewhere and you've got a shadow which makes it obviously look like the sun is over here on the right somewhere, it will not work. So the less shadow that's in the picture, the less it will look like the sun is not in the right place. I hope that makes sense. Right, so starting off with, the first thing we need to do is to add a blank pixel layer, which you can just do by clicking on this icon here. And it will add the layer above the background image. So then we want the brush tool, paintbrush tool. You can press B on the keyboard, or you can just click on this icon here, and we want to set the brush hardness at about 30%, thereabouts. There we go, 30%. And the colour we're going to use, I'm going to use the same settings that was in the Photoshop tutorial, and that was, the red was 104, the green was 78, and the blue was 15. And it gives it this sort of brown colour here. And then what we want is, I'm going to put the opacity up to 100%, and we want a brush size that is obviously suitable for your particular picture that you're going to use. For the size of the sun, I'm going to put mine up to around about the 800 mark. That's on 838.5, and I'm going to put it about there, and I'm going to click once and then twice, so I have that a bit stronger like that. Then I'm going to add another pixel layer, and this time I'm going to put the hardness up to 80%, but I'm going to reduce the size of the brush down to around the 300-ish mark. That'll do. And then I'm going to come to the center of the circle I've already made, and then just click once to give that a much more solid looking center to it. And then I'm going to change the blend mode of this top layer to screen, and then the layer below it, I'm going to change that to color dodge. So you have like the brighter sun and then with a sort of hazy ring around the outside of that. So what you could do now if you wanted to is to hold down the control key and click on both those pixel layers and then right click and group them together. So then if you wanted to, you could come to the move tool and reposition it wherever you want, resize it if you want to, but I will leave mine where that is. And you could even lower the opacity if you wanted to, if you thought it was too bright, or it's really up to your own personal tastes. So moving on, the next thing we want to do is to add another pixel layer above this group, and it's on this layer that we're going to be making like some sun rays coming out from the center of the sun. Now from this we want to use the lasso tool. So if you click on this icon here, and then you have options up here to use freehand, polygonal or magnetic, and we're going to go for polygonal. And you can then select either new or add. I'm going to start straight with add because I'm going to be adding more than one selection, so I'm going to have add selected, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and sort of draw out a shape outside the image, come down a bit and then come back to the center of the sun and join up and make the selection complete, and then add another 4, 5 or 6 sun rays around the image. They don't have to be the same size. It's probably better if they're not, because they wouldn't naturally all be the same size. So I'll just zoom out a little bit, and then I will click in the center of the sun. You don't have to hold down the left mouse button, because as you move the cursor the line will follow you, and then click somewhere outside the image, come down a bit and then come back to the center, and that will make that complete selection. And it's just a case of repeating this wherever you want your sun rays to be. So like I said, they don't all want to be the same size. And I'll just do one last one, quite a big one here I think, like that. So now I'm going to flood fill these selections. So I'm going to come to the flood fill tool, and I'm going to change the color of the foreground color, and this time again using the settings that were in the Photoshop tutorial. It's going to be 153 for the red, 239 for the green, and 185 for the blue, which gives us this sort of creamy colour. And I'll just click anywhere inside one of these selections, and then all of them will be filled. Now I'm going to press Ctrl and D to just get rid of the selections. So now we want to start to sort of blur these shapes. So I'm going to come up to filters, blur, Gaussian blur, and I'm going to raise it up quite high to about 60 pixels. So it's pretty much almost right to the end. So that's 60.4. I'll click apply. I'm then going to change the blend mode to overlay, and I'm going to lower the opacity down to about 40%. Roughly 41, that will do. And we need to sort of shorten these sun rays a little bit. So let me come off of this flood fill tool a second. Just come to that. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a layer mask to this layer, like that. Just click on this icon down here. Then we want to add a gradient to the layer mask, and we have to make sure it is a layer mask that we are working with, and come to the gradient tool. So you can either press G or just select this tool here. Then I'm just going to click in the center of the sun and then drag a line outwards, and then I'm going to, I mean, it could have done that, it's going to set that up as a linear, but I'm going to change that now to radial, and it's currently set up for going white to grey, but we want to go white to black. So I'm going to click on this color selector here, and then click on the grey node, and click in the color area here, and then just make that area, that color all black. And as you can see, because get rid of that, because the black is on the outside and it's sort of slowly grading into the white, it is shortening the distance of some of these sun rays that are not all going to the edge now. You can move the center point here, so if you wanted the sun rays to come nearer to the edge or not so near to the edge, that is up to you, but I'm going to leave it about there. So I do have a bit of a glow on the water here. It may still be a bit strong up the top there, but I'm going to leave that at the moment as it is. So moving on, first of all I'm going to come off of this tool, so I haven't got this line going across here. I'm also going to press Ctrl and 0 to bring it back to the full size. And the next part is adding a lens flare. Now, lens flare is not something that really you can do in Affinity Photo. There is an option to do this in Photoshop. So we're going to have to sort of use an outside source for this. Now, I have one here which I'm going to use, and I got this from this website here, which is DeviantArt, and it is made by Blue Zircon Graphics, and you can just click on download, and then you get 3 different lens flares. So I just click on this, you've got 3 different ones, as you can see here. I will add a link to this Blue Zircon collection to the description for this video. I will also add a link to a few other free lens flares collections or single images that you can use, depending on your taste and your image that you're going to be using this on. So you can decide which one you want to use, or you can find your own. But it basically needs to have a black background and then your lens flare. So I'm going to right click on this and then copy, come back to my image here, make sure that it is the top layer that is highlighted, not the layer mask, and then edit and paste. And as you can see, this image is quite small compared to my one, but I'm going to come to the move tool, and then I'm just going to hold down the control key to resize, put it roughly where I think the sunshine is, and then I'm going to change the blend mode to screen. Now screen will lose all of the black in the image, just leaving me with the lens flare. So then I'm just going to resize that a little bit more, I think, about there, and reposition it again. See how much you add with your lens flare, the less the effect you will have, or the more the effect. It's up to you. Now sometimes you may get, especially like I haven't gone right to the edge here, so it may get slight different colors between where the black was and the image below. You could always, if that happens to your image, you could either just make the lens flare image big enough to cover the whole image, or you can use an eraser tool to just, with a very soft edge, and blend in those edges, or even a layer mask and use the paintbrush tool. So there are ways around that. Let's see if I can demonstrate that a bit. If I use the eraser tool, and I've got a very low hardness, and then I don't know, you may not be able to see it, but there's a very slight line going across there from where that image was. So I'm just going to, and then lower the opacity down, and then just sort of blend so it's not such a hard straight line. You probably can't see that on the screen, but I can see it on mine. That's better. It just blends in a lot better. There's not such a straight line of the difference of colours. So let me just come off of this tool a second. Right, so now we want to add yet another pixel layer, and we're going to come to the brush tool, and we're going to change the foreground color again, and this time it is going to be red, is going to be 243, the green is going to be 220, and the blue is going to be 187, which gives us this sort of a, it's not far off the creamy colour we had, but it's a much more orange colour. Hardness I'm going to have at 0, and size wise I'm going to make this as big as it will go, which is, as you can see, it's quite a huge brush size. And what I'm going to do then is I'm going to just paint over around this whole layer image, something like that, and then I'm going to change the blend mode to screen, and then I'm going to lower the opacity down to about 30%, like so, and you could just continue to paint a few more just to make it a bit more hazy. This is, it's up to you how far you go with this sort of hazy look, but I will leave that at that. And now what we need to do is to add a bit of warmth to this whole image. Again, let me come off this tool. And to do this, we come to filters, and no we don't, sorry, I made a mistake there. It's under adjustments, because it's called a filter, but it's an adjustment. Lens filter adjustment. Click on that. Now by default it comes up with this orange color, so you would have to change it to the color that we want, but I'm going to leave that at the present on the color that it is set on, and I'm going to change the density up to somewhere around 80-90%. Let's go with 85. There we go. And then close that, and then I'm going to click on the lens filter adjustment just to shut that down. Now, one bizarre thing about Affinity Photo is if I wanted to add another lens filter, and it does happen with other adjustments as well, if you click on that again, it will either try and re-edit the one you've just added, or it won't let you do anything because it thinks you are trying to re-edit something that you can't. So rather than click on that again to add another lens filter, I'm going to have to come up to the layers menu, new adjustment layer, and then lens filter adjustment. And this time I'm going to pick a bright yellow. I'm not going to worry about the numbers this time. I'm just going to pick the middle of the yellow area like that, and I'm going to lower the density of that down to about 30%, like so, and that is basically the end of the tutorial. So you have a much brighter, sunny, hazier looking day. All you need to do now is to do any, if you want to tinker with the, say, like the lens filter, which is that one there. If you wanted to lower the opacity of that, if you thought it was that lens filter was a bit too much, you could just tinker with the settings, but I'm quite happy with where that is. Again, with any other settings, if you wanted to change the opacities and what have you, now would be the time to do it. But if you're happy with the end result, just save it or export it. And thank you for watching, and goodbye.